add in this, we're just gonna create it a little reactive where I'm gonna say left, and he comes back. Right, left, right. Awesome. So right there, we're creating that disassociation of the shoulders and hips. Coaches, you gotta look for it to see if it's happening. Now, to make this Eagle series even tougher, we can remove some of the base of support. This is where we get now into the injury prevention. Bill said earlier, most of sport takes place on one foot at a time, so when I'm running, I'm on one foot. A lot of times when I'm stopping or landing, I'm on one foot. If you don't have the ability to absorb force on just one leg, and when rotation takes place, this can be a very dangerous predicament where ACL injuries happen. So now, Bill's gonna perform the same exercise, but on one leg. Left, right, left, right, and good. So right there, you see the hips are turning, shoulders staying in the same place. This is a difficult concept for kids to get. You gotta work on this. This is a progression. If they can't do this, we are not moving further down the progression yet. So we've gone from stationary, a little bit of movement, now we're adding in rotation. These are big time concepts, but they are very simple drills that you can get kids to execute, make them perform better on the field, and be way safer.
Exercise number 7 in our progression of agility training is called the stationary speed skater. Now the key aspect of this is really going to be focusing on the center of gravity management over the base of support. So Martin's going to get into an athletic position. You can see right now again the center of gravity is between or in the middle of the two bases of support. He's going to do a stationary lunge to the side. Now as you can see, his center of gravity is over his right leg, over that main base of support. The majority of his weight is on his right leg. Then he's going to shift to the left, and now he's just moving his center of gravity to the left, shifting back to the right. This is also a great way to warm up. It's a great way to kind of get the body flowing and really just get the athlete to associate that center of gravity and where it is over the base of support.
We're on to the 8th exercise now in the change of direction progression, and what it is another stationary speed skater. The difference though is on the last speed skater that you saw, the center of gravity moved over the base of support, where in this case, now the base of support is going to move under the center of gravity. So the center of gravity is going to stay in the same place. On this exercise, there are 3 different versions in terms of the arm movements, so we've actually got a progression within this exercise for you as coaches to work on. Things that are important to make sure that take place during this exercise is that the feet stay forward so that we're still getting adequate internal rotation at the hip. A lot of times with our athletes this doesn't take place, so coaches should take note. Now Bill's gonna get down in the position. Hands start behind the back. His feet are forward, his weight is more on this leg and the outside plant leg. He's gonna switch the feet now. Ready, switch, switch, switch. You see how the head stays the same height, center of gravity is the same. Now we bring the arms out front, keeping the shoulder blades back, still the back flat. Ready, switch, switch. See how he's replacing the foot right under him. So all he's doing, a great coaching cue is just to replace the foot. Switch, and switch. And now, opposite arm, opposite leg. And now he's gonna use the arm motion. A little more difficult, but a great exercise. Switch, 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 and switch. Good. So awesome exercise right there. A good cardiovascular exercise too, where you're gonna feel the legs burning. It's got some force absorption there, but these exercises right here, again, we're learning how to manage that center of gravity, get the feet down under us for not just performance, but injury prevention.
Our next exercise, number 9, is called the jumping speed skater. Now this is a combination of our single leg crow hop and our lateral broad jump. This really brings in both elements to this exercise, and it is challenging. It's a little bit more demanding than anything else we've done, but we're going to start off real slow and very controlled. So we're going to be in an athletic position, and all Martin is going to do at this point is he's going to bring one leg up, he's going to be balancing on his left leg, he's going to jump to his right, shifting his center of gravity, jumping to his right, but maintaining that balance, jumping and landing and trying to stick it. Then he's going to jump back to his left, maintain balance. And as time goes on through the drill, he's going to get a little bit faster. And as you want to increase the intensity of the drill, he can jump a little bit further apart. And he can use the arms, as you can see, and he's really getting some momentum, balance, and stability. You can see how the center of gravity stays on the inside of the jump. So the plant phase, or the base of support, is on the outside, and the center of gravity is staying on the inside of each jump. So it's a great drill to really understand, manage, and control that center of gravity compared to the base of support. Remember that progression now, that single leg crow hop. There's an element of that drill into this exercise. That lateral broad jump is an element to this exercise. So whether you're sprinting or running, you might need to plan on the outside leg, the inside leg. You know, depending on what is needed in that athletic event, it's got to happen subconsciously, and these drills are going to help train your body, that motor vocabulary, to really call upon that and really maximize performance.
We've made it to number 10 in the exercise progression. And the last exercise was a jumping speed skater. Now we're going to utilize a forward jumping speed skater. So in the last exercise, when the athlete was jumping side to side, the center of gravity was staying managed in the center. But that isn't all that happens in sports. Sometimes the center of gravity is going to move forward and you've got to manage it sideways and forward, diagonally, and now this exercise helps us to do that. It's another great exercise for force reduction and eccentric control, as well as a cardiovascular exercise, depending on the distance that you go. Bill's gonna show it off right now, just doing 4 or 5 jumps right here, where he's gonna move, he's gonna get in his athletic position, but he's gonna jump side to side and forward, now staying under control and balancing, which even challenges his balance and coordination even more. So right there, it's a great exercise and something that you can get a whole team doing. So another great part about this progression is this is something that you can have 25, 30, 40 kids all doing it once and doing in unison, and it's gonna look great, and the kids that don't do it well, they'll stand out to you as a coach. So another fantastic exercise in the progression, and something that until you can do this, now we're starting to get into movement, until you can do this great, the athlete is still not ready to progress further onto the progression or onto the sports field. Exercise 11 is now again using a combination of a few of the exercises we already did before. Remember when we did the stationary speed skater where the base of support was actually moving under the center of gravity? Well, now we're going to couple that exercise with a side shuffle. So we call this one a center of gravity side shuffle. What Bill's going to do in a second is he's going to move laterally to the side, staying low, keeping the center of gravity close to the base of support. But then the base of support is going to shift under him so that the center of gravity is now exposed, driving him back in the opposite direction. He's going to have most of his weight on his inside leg, but he's going to plant and stop with the outside leg. He's going to repeat that back and forth a few times, and we're going to really look as coaches for technique and what's happening. If he can't get in that position over that inside leg, the legs aren't as protected as they could be. So let's watch Bill do this exercise and show it off. And good. So this is an awesome exercise now where you're watching that center of gravity get manipulated, but he's moving the feet and learning a motor skill that if he had to use quick movements on the field, he can now replace that base of support, get his center of gravity in the right position, and explode out either after an opponent or on offense. So this is something that you can't do this drill if you haven't moved through the progression, so we keep saying that, but before you can get great at this, you've got to be able to land properly, you've got to be able to manipulate your center of gravity, and then move your base of support under it. Once you've got that, now you can throw in this drill, which, as you're starting to see, we're getting much closer to the movements that actually take place on the field. So we have built our whole way up, we're almost there, but this can become your practice as coaches. So before you work on technique or skills, you throw 20, 30 minutes of this in every practice, it's going to pay huge dividends, as I keep saying, not only in winning more games, but having less kids on the bench hurt. Exercise number 12 builds off the center of gravity side shuffle that we just performed. Now coaches, we all know, right then it was a scripted activity where we're putting the weight on the inside leg and planting on the outside leg. But that's not always what takes place in sport, and we've got to have the legs protected. The next exercise we're going to show is called a crossover speed skater. So now we're building off the speed skater variations that we did. We're going to be adding more speed, which adds more torque, but now we're going to be doing all the planting on the outside leg. So you might have sports, basketball, football, hockey, where there's a lot of stopping that takes place on that outside leg too. So we never want to discount that. We want to actually train that. And not only that, but the groin musculature and the hip abductor musculature, these are muscles that we're working here with these drills that are going to really set up the athlete to prevent injury later. So now Bill's going to show off the crossover speed skater. And good. So right there, the difference between the center of gravity side shuffle was that now that weight is all on that outside leg. So now your athletes, when you build this progression, they're getting used to putting weight on the outside leg. They're putting weight on the inside leg, so that now they have motor programs. So whatever they call from their body to be able to do for that sport play, they're going to have something in the motor arsenal to use. The biggest mistake is to have athletes not armed with different motor programs, and then when their bodies ask for something and write a check that they can't cash, that's where injuries take place. So coaches, another great exercise in the progression, and now we're almost to the end where we're really getting into almost sport play.
Now on our 13th and final drill in our progression of change of direction, we're going to focus on forward and back movement. The key thing about this drill, just like all the other drills, is managing the center of gravity. For this specific movement, when we run forward, we want to make sure our center of gravity is in front of our base of support. As we approach the point or the cone, we want to decelerate, and then we're going to shift our center of gravity to be behind of our base of support. So we're going to have Martin line up to do this drill, and we're going to demonstrate what this looks like. So in the starting position, just like any starting position, Martin has a center of gravity in front of his base of support. He's going to accelerate forward. As he approaches, he slows down. Now his center of gravity comes behind his base of support. Now he's going to backpedal, keeping that center of gravity behind the base of support, and he's going to change direction. As we progress with speed on this drill, let's speed it up now and do a few reps. He's going to come forward, change, and as you can see, he's keeping that center of gravity in front of and behind the base of support. As his feet plant, he's always shifting that center of gravity. This drill is critical. This drill is a great exercise for your team to practice, because a lot of your movement on the field is short, quick steps, forward and back. By doing this drill, it takes a lot of energy. We talked about that conditioning element, and it really has a tremendous carryover to all sports play. So take this drill, put it in your routine. It's drill number 13. It's our final drill in our exercise progression. And now we're getting ready to add some equipment and take it up a notch.
Today we're going to talk about the Game Speed ladder. Now there are a lot of different ladders out there that you can utilize, but we've never gotten behind a product before because none of them really fit the needs that we wanted to have for our athletes to get the highest level of performance until we came across the Game Speed ladder. The Game Speed ladder, what I'm excited about is, if anybody knows anything about our training here at the Parisi Speed School, we like to do a lot of stuff barefooted. And a lot of the ladders that are out there, barefoot training is almost impossible because you're going to probably injure your feet unless you're landing perfectly in the ladder all the time. The Game Speed ladder, which is made of durable rubber but rolls out onto the floor flat, now erases that issue and we can train barefooted. Barefoot training is essential for proprioception but also strengthening the feet. And when the feet are much stronger, the lower leg is much stronger. And I believe not only are you going to have better performance, but you're going to have more injury prevention. Now, there are a lot of people out there that in training circles might say, the ladder is useless. The ladder only trains techniques for the ladder. If you get better in the ladder, that's only going to make you better at the ladder, not at your sport. And I strongly disagree. The ladder has numerous uses for training, all the way from very young athletes that are learning just simple motor programs, all the way to high-level athletes that are now looking to get a new challenging workout or improve proprioception or injury prevention. Today on this video, we're going to show off a number of different uses for the ladder with a couple of high-level athletes from here at the Parisi Speed School. There are a number of different uses for the Game Speed ladder. In training circles, a lot of coaches out there, some people aren't fans of a ladder at all, where they say, it just makes kids better at the ladder, doesn't make you better at sport, but I strongly disagree. The ladder is an excellent tool, not just for neuromuscular conditioning. It's also a great plyometric activity where kids are going to learn to turn muscles on and off faster and get their feet off the ground faster. It's a great cardiovascular tool which can improve the cardiovascular system as well as be used for weight loss. And it's a tool that can build strength, balance, and coordination for your athletes. So my dilemma is, just because a coach has rolled out the ladder doesn't mean that kids are getting better just by going through the ladder. On this video, we're going to really demonstrate the correct ways to utilize it following the principles that were on this DVD. So when we're talking about change of direction, base of support, center of gravity, these are all things as a coach that you've got to be monitoring whether you're using a ladder or not. So coaches, I implore you, see the exercises on this video, but make sure until your athletes are doing them correctly, you don't move on to harder skills. And we look forward to presenting this information for you and getting improvement and injury prevention for your athletes. Before we get started with exercises for the game speed ladder, there are a number of postural cues that you as a coach, you've got to be able to do kind of a checklist to go through to make sure you're getting exactly the performance you want out of the exercise. I've got Bobby Smith here, Olympic trials winner in the javelin throw, and what we're showing off is, let me take you through the checkpoints. The first one is base of support. So starting at the feet and working up, I want to make sure, hey, on this exercise, do I want a wide base of support? Do I want a narrow base of support? And I have to make sure it's correct. If Bobby makes his feet too wide right here and now his base of support is too wide, he might not be performing the drill exactly like I want. So bringing the base of support in according to the drill I want is going to be important. At that point, moving up the chain, what is happening not only at the balls of the feet but at the knees? Is the athlete landing on the balls of the feet or is he landing on the heels? Depending on that, it's going to change the reactivity of the drill. What are the knees doing? Are they moving fast enough? Are they coming up high enough for me? Am I getting enough flexion at the hip? And then talking about the hips, what is the pelvic position? Does he have an anterior pelvic tilt? Does he have a posterior pelvic tilt? These are all things we're looking at with our athletes because it's going to tell me not only if they're doing the drill right or wrong, but it's an assessment tool for me as a coach to see if something is tight or weak that now the ladder cues me that I have to address. So if I have athletes and they're jumping and their knees are always buckling in, I've got to look either up or down the kinetic chain to see, hey, is there weakness in the abductors of the hips? Is there a problem with pronation at the feet? Because until I change that, perhaps the knee angle is not going to go away. So don't just let a kid continue to do something wrong. As I've always said, you've got to develop a set of eyes to make sure that they're doing it right. From pelvis position, what's going on at the arms? We might want to say, hey, the arms should be at 90 degrees, the hands should be open, the shoulder blades should be retracted with a strong back position right there. And oftentimes in the ladder, a lot of athletes are going to look down. When they look down, it starts to change everything around their center of gravity. Now in sport, they may not be looking down. With your younger athletes, they might have to look down in the beginning just to make sure they get through the ladder. But a more advanced, seasoned athlete, now the head should be up, chest up, chin up with the shoulder blades retracted. At that point, you've gone through your postural assessment. I can't make it any simpler for the coaches out there that when you do a drill, you've got to see what you're coaching. If they're not doing it, that athlete is telling you something is missing and they need to have it addressed. That's where you come in as a coach. So remember, this tool is a fantastic tool. It's a vehicle to find out that information to make your athletes better while they're having a lot of fun doing it. So going through the postural check, very, very important, and I recommend it for all coaches that we do this on every exercise for the game speed ladder. In addition to the postural cues that we just showed for coaches, there are a number of different technical cues that you should also go through every time when you utilize the ladder. So there's just a number of different things with a lot of the drills that you're probably going to say over and over and over again, and we're going to go through them right now. The first one would be with Brandon. We've got Brandon Wood here, Division I football player at Rutgers. What we don't want to see is the head turning side to side. So when an athlete is turning the head side to side, we don't want to see that. We want to see the head straight ahead and not seeing too much vertical displacement. Okay? So if you see the athlete's heads moving up and down, they're not absorbing the forces correctly. The next thing I want to see is that the arms are at 90 degrees. So I always want to make sure, guys, hands are open, arms are at 90 degrees. We utilize this not only for increased speed and extension, but a lot of sports that are out there, whether you have to tackle somebody or catch something, it's just better to have the hands in this position. The pelvic position has to be right, but when I talk about the hips for technique, I want to make sure that the hips are staying over the ladder on most of our drills. When I start to see the athletes displace too far in and outside the ladder, their motions become less efficient. So with Brandon right now, if he's doing a little slalom jump side to side, he's keeping the hips over the ladder right here. What I don't want to see is that he hops all the way outside the ladder and then moves all the way back. Because now he's not changing direction properly, he's not using his center of gravity over his base of support correctly. So we have to look at this stuff as coaches. We're not going to get great performance unless we teach it and then we demand it. From there, I want to make sure that the athlete is always landing on the balls of the feet and that he's staying crisp on and off of the ground. So one of the key goals is that I'm always seeing quick, fast movements. And then finally, which Brandon just showed right there, which is a great cue as well, is opposite arm, opposite leg relationship. You're going to be surprised so many times with your athletes that they're going to start to use same arm, same leg, or they're going to start to move through drills and the arms aren't matching the leg motions anymore. I don't want to create improper patterns here. So you're going to see on a lot of the different exercises that have different patterns, we may just keep the hands out front because it's more of an agility movement than trying to coordinate the arms with that as well, which may be more difficult. But let's say Brandon right here is going to do just a quick foot drill through the ladder, and you can start. Right there, do you see how when he's moving, the arms are going opposite arm, opposite leg when he does it? So when we're using the ladder, coaches, I want this thing to look like a military operation. Now you know the postural cues and you know the technical cues. So every kid, once you've assessed them through the ladder, you should always be working towards perfect performance. When you get that, not only are you going to have more success out on the field, but I guarantee there's also going to be injury prevention. Get to work on these and make sure, never let off on technique or posture, and your athletes are going to definitely thank you for it. So now you've rolled out the game speed ladder and you have an understanding of postural cues and technical cues to look at. That doesn't mean you're ready to just start blasting through. There are a number of progressions that you still need to follow with your athletes, and I think it's very important as a coach that you understand them. The first one, or the simplest progression to understand, is easy drills to harder drills. Don't start with the sexier, more complex drills right off the bat. So we're going to show something called the Icky Shuffle today. It's one of the most popular ladder drills out there, but it's also very complex. If your kids can't do a regular bunny hop through the ladder yet, I'm not moving to the more advanced stuff. Let the advanced stuff be the treat that they get after they perform the other drills even better. After that, we're going to start talking about the second progression, and that's slow to fast. Every exercise should be performed in a slow and controlled manner first. Don't just let the kids start going wild and trying to do it as fast as they can, because when they do that, it's usually going to be wrong. Let the kids know what kind of performance you're looking for, what kind of technique you're going to demand, and then start off slowly. Perform it slowly and controlled, and then increase the speed only after the technique is proficient. And then finally, we're going to look at low to higher impact. There are going to be jumping drills, single leg activities. The higher the amplitude of the jump, or the less the base of support on a single leg, that's going to increase the stress on the athlete. Be aware of that. So start off easy, move to harder drills. Start off slow, get things faster, and start off with very low impact and then make it higher impact over time. You're not going to go to all the fancy stuff the first day in the ladder. Work up to stuff. And that variety is not only going to keep the kids excited, it's going to make sure that you're going to progress properly when you're using the game speed ladder. The final piece before we get into the exercises of actually using the game speed ladder is you have to understand the acute variables when using a ladder, and this is important. I talked about the game speed ladder as a barefoot ladder, that now you can train barefooted safely. But remember, depending on the surface that you have, it still determines whether you can go barefoot or not. So what I would recommend is if you're going to start doing some barefoot work, you better have a nice, soft, pliable surface. Today you can see that we're using a nice turf surface. You could also use grass or even some kind of AstroTurf if you have it on your field. But what I wouldn't recommend right off the bat is if you've only got hardwood floors or a hard track surface, make sure that the kids are still keeping their shoes on. I still think the advantages of training barefoot are incredible, but you can't injure your kids just to try to achieve that. The next variable is volume and intensity. The ladder can be a very taxing event. Remember, this is change of direction. There's a lot of jumping, it's plyometric, there's a lot of eccentric tensions that are placed through the athletes. So monitor how many repetitions you're doing of each exercise and then how many total sets that you're using the ladder for. So if you're doing an exercise, I don't recommend that you do more than 2 or 3 repetitions of each type of exercise. And I really wouldn't go over more than 20 to 25 sets through the ladder. Anything more than that, and you're going to start breaking your athletes down and motor programs are going to start to diminish. In addition to that, when we look at volume, then we have to also look at the time frame, which creates the density. Make sure that you've got some rest periods in there as well too. So when an athlete blasts through the ladder, don't just have them blast back and blast back again, because now it's turned into an anaerobic event where the kids are going to start to fall apart. Like any change of direction exercise, make sure that there's enough rest in between. So an athlete might go through the ladder and it takes 5 or 10 seconds. Rest 15 or 30 seconds before you pass through again. We're going to show you how to do that by actually going through the ladder, making sure that you've walked all the way back, stopped, and then passed through again. Because coaches, we're looking for technique here. Any coach, I've always said it, if you make a kid so tired that he can't perform or he's throwing up, that doesn't mean you're tough, that means you're a bad coach. We're looking for great technique here on how to perform these drills. So the volume of how much we're doing, and then that coupled with the time frame creates the density. I don't think you should be using a ladder for more than 30 minutes. So under 30 minutes at least, this can be something that you can complete in 10 or 15. If you're doing ladder workouts for 2 hours, you are not getting benefits, you're wearing your athletes down. The next variable is frequency. So now we just talked about volume and intensity and how stressful this is on the athlete. The last thing you're going to do is now perform ladder drills every day as a result. So I would recommend that utilizing a ladder like this, especially if it's barefooted, you should probably only utilize it every 2 to 3 days. If your athletes are experiencing soreness, I would wait at least 1 or 2 days after the soreness subsides before you start doing the ladder again. In addition to a ladder just being straight ahead, another variable is you can change the pattern of the ladder. So we're going to show on this today that you can actually fold the ladder over and make it into an L. You can get a number of ladders and make it into a square. So think outside the box. It doesn't just mean as a coach the ladder is only one movement and that's it. There are so many different ways that you can use it, and by changing direction, not only does it increase variety and stimulus to the athlete, but it really stimulates their mind to continue to enjoy the exercise. And then finally, today we're also going to show that the ladder is not just lower body activities. You can also perform a number of upper body activities on them as well. So there are a number of different variables that you have to follow when you use the ladder. Like any piece of equipment, it is often way more complex than you think. And it's not what I believe that you know that's going to make you successful. It's finding out the things you don't know that can make you great. I hope you enjoyed everything that we've gone through so far and it's changed how you thought about using the ladder. Now we're going to get into the exercises, and remember, great posture, great performance is going to equal success on the field and injury prevention. The first running exercise we're going to show off is 2 feet in every box. It's essentially a quick step drill, and what we're going to do is keeping the hands at the hips, we're going to brush them open along the sides of the hips, and the toe is going to stay dorsiflexed, pull up over the ankle, and each foot is going to land in each box one time, and then the athlete is going to move forward. Bobby and Brandon are going to show these off right now. The next exercise is high knees, 2 feet in each box. Now we're gonna have the arms at 90 degrees, the hands open, but there's gonna be way more amplitude with the arms to match the much higher position of the knee. So we're looking, coaches, for almost getting that knee parallel with the ground. Toes are still gonna be pulled up, landing on the balls of the feet, but this is gonna be now much more explosive and aggressive as the athletes pass through the game speed ladder. This exercise is called the low knee, 1 foot in each box. Now, again, like the quick step, we're gonna travel forward faster. So now we're gonna move our hips forward faster. The effective stride length is going to change, but we're still gonna keep low knee drive, landing on the balls of the feet, hands brushing by the hips, but now 1 foot is gonna land in each box. So we're gonna move through the ladder faster, but now, instead of 2 feet in each box, it's just going to be 1. This exercise is called the high knee, 1 foot each box, where now again we're going to higher amplitude, fuller arm action, knees coming up parallel to the ground, toe pulled up, landing on the balls of the feet. We're gonna be more explosive, and now each foot is only gonna land in 1 box at a time. Skipping is another fundamental exercise that you can work with your athletes using the Game Speed ladder. This next exercise is called the high knee skip, 1 foot in each box. Now remember, some of your athletes might have trouble skipping, so make sure they still have the opposite arm, opposite leg relationship, arms at 90 degrees, hands open, leg parallel to the floor, and the toes pulled up. Right now, the guys are going to show this one off. The next skipping exercise is called the side skip with 2 feet in each box. Once your athletes have skipping down pat, now we can start skipping laterally, which is more challenging, but it's something that athletes need to work on. So right now what the guys are going to perform is they're going to face in that direction and they're going to skip, leading with the right foot in and then the left into each box as they move. Again, arms are at 90 degrees, knees are up, toes are pulled up. Let's see this one in action. The final skipping exercise is called a side skip. In the first 2 skipping exercises, we kept a very narrow base of support, but that's not always what happens in sports. So now, the guys are going to actually place their feet outside the ladder and now use skipping motions trying to maintain their center of gravity over the ladder, but now having to put forces through the body laterally and forward. Great activity. Again, it works technique. So keeping the arms at 90 degrees, still getting the knees up, and trying to maintain that center of gravity over the ladder. Shuffling drills are great exercises or patterns that not only work on foot speed, but they also address coordination and balance. The first exercise we're going to show off in the shuffles is the 2 foot each box side shuffle. Right here, we're going to almost utilize